Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how you can transform a mossy, bumpy, uneven lawn into something you can be proud of. Let me show you around. Now this customer's absolutely fanatical about a lawn. It used to be kept lovely when her husband were alive, but it's just gone downhill over the years, and she's getting older and she's struggling a bit to get everything done how she wants. So we are carrying out a full renovation, but we're going to be sorting out some of the humps and bumps as well. Although you can't see it at first glance, customer knows exactly where all the little dips are. So what I've done, I brought about, I don't know, 30 bags of compost, and I've also bought 20 bags of topsoil, which we're going to use to sort out those little humps and bumps. Let me show you around. So this front lawn, as you can see, very mossy. It indicates to me that this has either suffered in the summer sun and then it's gone into winter nice and, well, not nice, it's gone into winter weak. And that weakness causes thinning, and the moss creeps in to the thin areas. And then we'll just go round to the back. So we've got this side lawn. It's a similar sort of thing. Few little bare spots, very mossy, very thin, as you can see there. And now we'll take it onto the back lawn. So they're all a similar sort of size, but there's a fair bit of work to do here. It's not just a standard renovation, it's the levelling up which we're going to be carrying out as well. So we just need to crack on. So it's basically just a case of what we normally do, which is scarify, aerate, overseed and top dress, and then we're going to be using the topsoil, and I'm going to show you how we do that later on in the video to get all the little humps and bumps much leveler so the customer is happy. Right, let's get started. Happy customer is a happy life. Happy life, that's what you want. I'm tired before I even begin. Anyway, let's crack on. Now when you want to improve a lawn, you've got two parts of a lawn to think about. You've got the surface, the line. That's where the soil and the grass sticks out. Okay, we have to deal with what's happening below the surface, and we have to deal with what's happening above the surface. Now above the surface is where we get things like moss and thatch building up. Below the surface is whatever the builders put there, and it hopefully will be nice, reasonably free draining soil, a little bit sandy but drains nice and easy. The odd bit of clay won't do any harm, but if it's complete clay, as it rains, the rain's going to sit on top of that soil and it won't drain through very fast. So it tends to sort of pool on the surface, and it makes it wet and it makes it boggy when it's been raining. And because it's like that, we get things like moss building up, and moss likes damp and shade. So even if it's not in shade, okay, we've got moss on the front lawn, it's not in shade, and if it's clay, then the water's going to sit there and the moss is going to be created. That's what attracts the moss to it. Now, to deal with what's happening underneath, we do something called hollow tine aeration or aeration. Years ago, your grandparents used to do it with a garden fork, put it in and wiggle it about, and it puts little holes in the ground, and that improves drainage, so aerating nutrients can get down to the roots. It's something you should do every single year if it needs it. You imagine you've got a washing line, and after a period of time you'll see that there's a line along the washing line on the floor where it's sort of worn down a bit, and that's because you've compacted it by keep walking on top of that area. So as you're walking, you're squeezing all the little air particles out, and all the soil particles get compacted together. So you need to aerate to let everything get in again and let it sort of loosen up a little bit. You can put some gypsum on, especially on clay lawns, which will help to break up those clay particles. Now there's another situation where we can get moss. For example, when you cut your lawn really short, it weakens the grass in a lot of situations, and when you weaken the grass, a weak grass will encourage moss and weeds. So it's important to have a little bit of height. If there's some moss in there, you want your grass just slightly above it. So what we're going to do, we're going to aerate first. We've got a machine there called a hollow tine aerator, and that's a machine. You can use a handheld tool just like this. This is a hollow tine aerator manual tool, and we've got replaceable tines, and when you push this in the ground, it pushes soil up and they hit this little ramp there. As you can see, it ramps up and then the soil gets ejected. You can get some where these tines are not hollow, and when they're not hollow, sometimes the soil gets jammed. So you want one with a bit of a side opening in them like this. This is by J&J. It's a really good model, and they've sold out really fast on Amazon, but there's a few other good ones, and I've done some videos that show you what all of these do. So these are for little tight corners and areas where you can't get your machine, or if you want to do your lawn by hand, you can do it by hand with this. And you want to be putting this in sort of every 3 inches or so across the lawn. It's going to take a little while, but you just do it in stages. And then once we've aerated, we've dealt with what's happening below the soil, we're then going to scarify, which is like taking a comb or a rake and just raking what's above the soil. And that will drag out some of that moss. You won't get it all out, but it will drag some of it out, and it will also drag out something called thatch. And thatch is where parts of grasses die off and they sort of lay flat, and that builds up like a spongy layer, like a thatched roof. And what does a thatched roof do? It keeps water out of the house. So a thatch layer prevents water from getting down to the roots as fast as it should. So it's important to thin that out as well on a regular basis. So we're going to crack on. I'm going to run around with the aerator first, then I'm going to go over with the scarifier, then we're going to clear it all up. We'll get the other 2 lawns done as well, and then we're going to have a look at what I do in terms of levelling up your lawn. So let's get cracking. This blooming weather yesterday was absolutely horrific. It rained really heavily all day long. I was supposed to be here yesterday. So there you go. It's still raining now. Happy days. This is really thick. There's so much coming out, and even though we are breaking through, we're gonna have to go over again and maybe a couple of times, but you can just see what's coming out. It's just pure moss, a few bits of grass in there. That's the best way, nice and steady, going over several times rather than ripping through it in one fell swoop. Now take your time, take your time. Supposed to be dry today, and it's just miserable, but we've started, so we've got to finish. Somebody's having some aggregate delivered. Anyway, so it's amazing how much comes out just on the first pass, isn't it? And when you walk on it now, it doesn't feel as spongy. This end feels a bit more spongy, but down that end, where there's a little bit less sunlight, it's all shaded, there's less thatch produced, so it actually feels a bit firmer underfoot, and that is what we're trying to achieve. So we'll clear this up. Customers let me use the garden bin. I'm using these leaf grabbers, and then I will go over again with the scarifier until it feels fairly firm, and we've got some nice grooves in the soil, which I'll show you after the next pass, and we'll take it from there. But these save you back no end. Okay, you just put it in the bin and that's it.
Do you know, obviously if you haven't got a machine, yeah, you can get cheaper basic machines now from Screwfix. I think they're $69.99 or something like that. But if you don't even want to go to that expense, you can literally just get one of these metal springbutt rakes. I like these, the Bulldog brand. It's got that piece of metal there which keeps everything nice and rigid. The ones that you can open a handle and it gets smaller and fatter, I'm not too keen on them. I think they're very flimsy. And literally all you do, you just rake your lawn. And that's literally, a Screwfix scarifier is literally just one of these with an engine, and it's got these little metal spokes. And you could see I was going around the edge with this tool, which is a more advanced version of that. This is by Wolf Garten. You have to buy the handle and you have to buy the end, the separate attachments. Okay, that's a scarifying blade, and you see the blades there are really sharp, and I've had this for years now. Come with a 10-year warranty. And what I'm doing, I've been going around the edge of the lawn because the machine blades physically can't get right to the edge because that's where the wheels are. So it's handy to have one of these for tight areas where the machine can't get, little corners and things. Right, so I'm going to go over now, second time, clear up, let's take it from there. So how do we know when enough is enough? How do we know when to stop scarifying? I'm going to try and explain that here and now by showing you this lawn. So we are trying to get rid of thatch, which is the sponginess. Now when you walk on it, this now feels quite firm because we can see soil, and it's really important that you get to this stage. It's okay to leave little bits of moss, but if you've got a patch of moss, you still want to thin that out. A lot of this area is actually not too bad now. Now I've gone heavy with this because we are scarifying and we're going to be overseeding. Okay, that's fine if we're seeding. Here, there's a few patches, even though we can feel and see the grooves, there's still a fairly big patch there of moss. So it's mainly this top section. We just need to give it one more rake, I think. That section's okay. And we can either use the handheld Wolf Garten scarifier, or we can go over with the machine and just walk across it. As you can see there, it's quite obvious. So we're looking to reduce the spongy feel that you feel when you walk on the lawn. So we'll just take out these last few bits. Right, you might not be able to see it, but here it hasn't scarified with the machine at all. You can see here where you can see the brown, but here it hasn't. So if you put that there, you can see you get your hands underneath because of the dip, and it starts about there. Can't get my finger under there, look, and I can't get my finger, well, only just there, but then you can easily get underneath there. So it's sunk a little bit here, and we need to raise that back up. So I'm going to show you that soon, a little bit later on in the video. I've got to finish off clearing this up. I'm going to run over with the mower. want to get the other 2 lawns scarified and aerated, and we get to the point on all 3 lawns where we can start the levelling. But for little areas like this, just use your rake or the Wolf Garten scarifier and just gently drag it backwards and forwards, because even though we're going to be raising the height, we still want to get some of this thatch out, because it will impede, that's a big word for me, it will stop the brand new roots from pushing down the roots nice and easy. It'll make it harder for them, so it'll be under stress. So it's important. Preparation is absolutely everything. See, now that has come out, look at all that. When we do seed, it can push down, it hasn't got to push down through all this. This, oh, she's lovely. This lady's absolutely lovely. I'd say she's in her 70s, maybe close to 80s, I don't know, but she says if you want to pack up, you can pack up and leave everything in my garage, it's all alarmed. I says I don't know when we'd fit you in, that's the trouble. We're so busy and full, but it's only around the renovations. The rest of the year it's not a problem. So yeah, I think on the renovations, if we get a lot of jobs like we have done this time, we get a few days help. She's so kind. Yeah, leave me all the bags, she says, leave me all the bags, and I'll get rid of them in some of neighbours' bins. And when it's wet grass, it's really heavy. Anyway, it's supposed to stop raining within the next hour, and then all afternoon is supposed to be dry, so we should be a lot quicker on the back lawns. There's 2 lawns at the back, so I'm expecting to be a lot quicker, which we need because we've taken extra time on the front, but it needed it. It was so mossy, it was unbelievable. And you know what? We're waterproof, aren't we? We are. I don't mind a bit of rain at all. But like I was saying to the customer, it's when we're putting the soil and the compost down later that it sticks to the bottom of your boots and you're trampling it all down the path. So I'm not letting her have all these heavy bags of grass. I'll be taking this waste away. I've used a bin, but the rest I'll be taking away. I know when it rains it can put you off, and ideally for you guys at home, you don't want to do it on a rainy day. You want a nice lovely day, not too hot but certainly dry. But when you're a business with hundreds of customers and a good percentage what we're doing, you have to start earlier, and it's been the same every year. We start earlier, we usually do a scarify and aerate a little bit later in the year, close to summer, even though I don't like it, because it's not good to stress the grass out when it's getting hot. But if you're good with watering, you can get away with it. Alright, rough but neat. This is the stage you need to get to when you're scarifying and aerating in regards to doing some overseeding. You want the soil exposed. The scarifier creates the grooves in the soil, much like a farmer's field who sows his seeds and then runs his machine over to cover the seeds and protect the seeds. We'll be getting onto that soon. So it's nicely thinned out and it's nice and clean. Wherever we look, there's plenty of soil exposed. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go around the back, scarify and aerate both of those lawns. It'll probably take me 2 or 3 hours, but for you guys, a few seconds, a few moments of your life, a few moments of your day. Enjoy, and then we'll get on with the next step, which is the leveling up before we get onto the seeding. Have I just been looked after or what? 2 bacon sandwiches on a bun which was toasted. The bacon was just how I like it, nice and crispy. Don't like chewing on fat. And bacon with sausage and a coffee. And I went and sat inside, so I couldn't show you a picture of it, but the bun was toasted. It was absolutely amazing. And a coffee. And she says, do you want a custard? I says, I can't eat anything else, I'm absolutely full. She said, I've just made it. And I felt guilty then. I says, go on then. She brought a small piece out, and it was really nice. She used to be a cook. She's 88. 88. And she's still helping out her daughter, who's 66, who had, sadly, she's had 3 brain tumours, brain hemorrhages. So she still leads a really busy and active life. Yeah, but she's absolutely lovely. If I could adopt her to be my grandma, I would, because she's absolutely lovely. Anyway, let's talk about this lawn and what we're going to do. I'm happy now. The moss is thinned out. There's not a deal left. It's all tidied up. It's been aerated. It's nice and thin. I've just got this lawn down here, this second lawn, this side lawn, to scarify again, clear up, mow, and then we can start on the leveling, and then we can do the seeding and the top dressing. So we're currently at 1 PM, so that's taken half a day to scarify all 3. As you can tell, there was a lot that's come out. They've all been scarified 2 or 3 times, but it needed to be done. It's going to be better for it. So we're going to crack on with this one, and we'll take it from there. Right, I like to tidy up as I go. I can't put any of these in until the very end. See how many bags of compost and topsoil we've got left, and then all the waste can go in, and the last few bits and bobs. So we've cleared everything out, aerated, double scarified. Similar situation round the back. What we've got left there is the lute, compost spreader, a blower, a landscaper's rake, my other blower, and the compost. So we're just about ready to do some top seeding. We're just about ready to do some seeding and top dressing, but there is a few little dips here and there which we want to sort out, which we're going to get onto right now. I know for a fact there's one in the corner, and there might be one there, and there's a bit of a dip around this section here, and a few bits on the front. So this is why I brought the topsoil. So we're going to go around the front and start off around there. Now I know for a fact there's definitely a dip down there. So I'll just grab a bag of topsoil. So you can use a brush, a broom, back of a landscaper's rake. You can see it dips down there. So it sort of comes out to here, to over there, and that sort of section there. So we know that's sort of the end of it there. The whole thing dips. So what you want to do, when it's really deep, you want to build it up in layers. But this isn't too bad. Normally I'd add maybe a couple of inches of soil and then use a roller or your hands and firm it down, or even your feet, you can stand on it. Now you might think, well, that's a lot. I'm going to put my gloves on for this bit. But this will soon go. Look, you can even see a gap over there. Now you'll never get it spot on, but if you can get it better, then you can keep adding soil to it throughout the year. And if you just left it like that, eventually when you stand on it, you're going to sink in. So you've got to firm those layers as you're building them up. You add a couple of inches, you firm it down, you dust it off again, firm it down again, and so on. But this isn't too bad. Now we look, and it has come up a little bit, and even over there there's a little gap, but it's not as bad. Now the whole thing does slope down, so we've got to be a bit careful. So now it's almost flat. Like I say, you're after an improvement. If you want it perfectly flat, you want really decent sandy-ish soil. So I'm going to use a roller. So that's just firmed it down. What you've got to remember is you can go on and on and on and on and on with this process, and you can really, it takes forever and ever and ever. I would rather get it 90% there, and then you can build it up over time. But we're close, we are close. We've only got a bit more to put in there. So you get it as flat as you can and sort of feather it into the edges. And when I say feather, I mean big fat layer in the middle because it's deep. As you get towards the edges, it becomes a thinner layer, and it just sort of tries to blend in with the height around the edge. So there's next to nothing there, and it's dipping a bit here. Now if you've got a lute, it's particularly helpful here. They call them lawn levelling lutes, and that is what they're for. I'll just go and get my lute and I'll show you what I mean. So with the lute, as you pull it across, it's going to move soil that's in a high spot and transfer it to a low spot. So you see how it all gathers there? You can just work your way across the entire lawn like this. So use your lute just to drag it all about. If you haven't got one of these, Robbie on Premier Lawns channel has a video where he uses a pallet or a drag mat. It does a similar thing.
So that's much quicker than using a rake. Now every time you put some soil down, go over with the roller to firm it down. So we've put 1.5 bags of soil in there, and what it's done, it's raised the height up a little bit, so it's now a little bit flatter. And even now your heels are sinking in. If you stand on your heels, they sink in. So it's a little bit of extra weight, which is good. But if you haven't got a lute, you can just use the back of a rake. And I'm just going to put the last bit of soil in here. So that's 2 bags of soil. Right, so we've filled in a few of the dips. We've got it better than what it was. We've actually used, I think, 15 or 16 bags of soil, and it's hard to tell where it's been apart from you can actually see the soil itself. But it's made it better. Now, once everything's established, you can bring a bag of soil once a month into any dips, put it in, waft it about with your fingers or a broom so it doesn't smother those blades of grass, and it comes in, you waft it in with your fingers and it works down and sits there between the blades of grass within the dip. Just half a centimetre to a centimetre or 2 centimetres. The point is, whatever the blade of grass is, don't come up any more than about halfway. Now that grass will continue to grow up, and then the next month, because it's grown higher, you can put a bit more soil in, and then month after you can put more soil in, and the grass will keep growing higher. So what you're doing is you're gradually filling in those dips bit by bit over the year, and that's the way forward. So now we're at the stage where we can start rebuilding. So what I need to do is put some fertiliser on, some seed on, and some multi-purpose compost just to cover the seeds. There are a lot of birds in this garden. Every time I've gone around the front, there's been 7 or 8 birds on the front lawn, so I'm going to work on one lawn at a time. I'm going to put fertiliser on this lawn, then I'm going to seed it, and then we're going to put the compost on. Get everything done lawn by lawn. Start here at the furthest part away and work our way back round to the front. We're currently on, I think it's about 3:15, something like that. 20 past 3. And we got here at 7:45 this morning. So that's 7.5 hours. Is that right? Yeah, 7.5 hours so far. It's took us longer because it was wet this morning and continuously raining, which made it harder with the scarifying, and each lawn needed 2 or 3 scarifies, and it's harder clearing up. Everything just takes you longer when it's raining, so that delayed us a little bit. And then we've done some levelling, which has probably added another 45 minutes to an hour onto the day, but it's done.
and it's better. So we'll crack on now. Hopefully we can have this last part done within an hour, hour and a half, and be out of here within a couple of hours. So we'll make it no later than 5:15 on a finish note, which is fair enough. So let's crack on. So you don't have to put fertiliser on, but it does help. Now, fertilisers have these funny numbers on the front and letters N, P and K. Nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. And they all do different things for the plant. When everything's established, if you put something down that's higher in the N, it really forces a nice green flush. But you don't want that when you're putting new seeds down. You need what's called a pre-seed fertiliser, which is a little bit more balanced and just slightly higher in the other two numbers. Give or take, that's just very roughly. So you don't want anything that's high in the N. If all you've got is something that's slightly higher in N, just put a slightly lighter dose on. I've done that many times with no problems. So now we are rebuilding. I'm actually putting an autumn fertiliser on here, which is all about roots. So just a nice light setting on here, and we walk up and down, squeeze the trigger, turn the handle. There we go. Right, the next thing is seeding. You can use a hand spreader, or you can use a drop spreader. When you squeeze this handle, the hole's open in the bottom, which allows the seeds to fall through. With this one, when you squeeze the trigger on the biggest setting, a hole opens inside and you turn the handle and the seeds come out. But with this, you can easily get it into borders, so you need to be a bit careful around edges. Or you can just take a handful by hand and scatter it over the lawn. I'm going to try it with this first because it does a little bit quicker. It is a little bit quicker. And then the rest I'll probably just do by hand. So we'll see how we get on. If I'm struggling because of the wind blowing the seeds, I'll swap to the drop spreader. Now this is just a general amenity seed by Hurrell's Seeds. It's what I recommend for most cases. Now some seeds are very small and very light, and they don't work too well. They don't come out too well in the hand spreader because they're so small and so light, and there's not much weight pushing down. So I'm on the maximum setting, number 5. I'm going to squeeze the trigger, and I know it comes out either side maybe 1/2 metre, and sort of in the middle here is where it comes out. So I'm trying to get the middle of this hand spreader in line with the edge of the lawn, and then leaving about 1/2 metre either side. So here we go, squeeze, and there we go. Absolutely perfect. So I'm going to carry on, do this lawn, and then we'll work on to the next lawn, lawn by lawn, because these birds are going to be coming down and it's going to be very funny. I need to get these seeds covered as fast as possible before the birds come down. I think there's more around the front. All these bags are wet, so clothes get a bit wet. Anyway, I'm using a compost spreader, but you don't have to use one of these. You can dump this out in a pile and use your brush or the back of a rake to work it across the lawn. I'll pick up one of these. Compost spreaders, and just push them across the lawn.
Got to be careful twisting and turning it because it will just drag the seeds around. So I'm going to carry on with this, and then we can get on to the next one, and then the front. So we can actually leave it at this, walk away, and as long as the customer waters it regular, it's going to be a nice lawn in 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. As long as I don't get no ridiculously bad rain, it should be absolutely fine. But we can improve chances even more. So occasionally in places the grass is sticking through, and other places the existing grass is smothered. And what we want to do is work the compost down in between the blades of grass, like we did with the topsoil. But where it's bare soil, we don't want to be dragging the lute across, because it will actually drag the seeds out of place. So we don't bother putting the lute on there, or the rake, or anything like that. We can put the roller on as long as it's not wet. Now you can use a brush, or a broom, or just leave it. But all I'm going to do is take the lute once again and just drag it across the lawn. And what it does, you can see here where it's smothered. But when you drag it, it beds it in. So we're going to work it across the lawn, and then the final step, almost, is to use a roller. Now we have a roller here, which we're going to use after we've luted, and we're going to push this across so everything's firmed in. And then there is one more last step which we'll show you in just a few minutes. Let's crack on. Right, so the last but optional step, and to be fair, they're all optional up until you put the seed on, but every one of these extra steps after putting your seed on improves the chances of good, solid, overall even germination. Now I'm going to apply some of my emerald green to the lawn, which is part wetting agent, part magic concoction that I've developed. I actually put this together about 5 years ago, and I knew what all the individual components did. Put it on the lawn, and it really does work wonders. It helps seeds to germinate, and it really nourishes the lawn right through the year. Even in winter you can apply this, but in summer as well, if you put this on in summer, say once every 2 or 3 weeks, and you give a little bit of water, this will help hold water around the roots. And what that means is the lawn isn't drying out. It really does keep your lawn greener for longer with less watering. You still got to water. So this is pretty much it. Final step. So I'm going to spray this on, and customer's going to do some watering in.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's 20 past 5. We got here at 10 to 8 this morning. 4, 5, 9, is it 9.5 hours? 9.5 hours. I'm feeling it now. But anyway, so this is the last step. And literally you just spray it on or put it on with a watering can and water it in. But there is some more rain on its way. So thanks for watching. This has been a grafter. This has been a grafter. Partly because of all the rain this morning, and it was making all the thatch wet and heavy. And dragging heavy bags around with grass that's wet isn't fun. And I've had to scarify each lawn about 3 times, and obviously aerate, and then we've overseeded, top dressed, and we've levelled out the humps and bumps as well. So I appreciate you stopping by. So I'm going to crack on, get this sorted, and I'll leave it to the customer to water in. But I think we're going to get some rain the way it's coming now. I think it's going to be here in the next 20 minutes looking at that. Oh. Hey, thanks for watching.